I'm for president, I'm for president, I'm for president, I'm for president. You like right, I like right, everybody likes right for president. Check out the better.
All right. Today we are bringing in President Eisenhower after Truman. Yay! This is our first presidential commercial ever.
Cartoon's pretty good.
Yes, it's cartoons, pretty sweet. Done by Walt Disney, actually.
Oh,
Katie Rose Eisenhower. Where have you heard of Eisenhower before?
World War II.
World War II. Very good, right? He's the Supreme Allied Commander. He was in charge of World War II. Eisenhower is what party?
Eisenhower is what party?
What party, yes.
Republican.
He's a Republican.
Elephant.
When we think of World War II, who was president?
FDR.
And he was what party?
Democrat.
Very good. When you think of World War I, who was president?
Wilson.
Woodrow Wilson. Very good. And what party was he?
Democrat.
Democrat. So in the early 20th century, Democrats were seen as the foreign policy party, right? World War I was Wilson, FDR and Truman. World War II, Democrats owned foreign policy. Today, generally speaking, when there's a foreign policy crisis, we look to Republicans. So there was a switch somewhere along in our history where Republicans used to be the isolation party. Republicans didn't want to deal with the foreign policy. Now today, we tend to see the Republicans as the foreign policy. That switch comes with Eisenhower.
Why
wow.
did they switch?
Eisenhower. Why
I have
did
a
they
question,
switch? Yes,
Mr. G.
please.
Why did they switch?
Why did they switch? Well, think about Truman and what just happened. What we covered. Truman fired MacArthur, a war hero. What country just fell to communism?
China.
China. So in their time, they saw that as a weakness. They saw that as the Democrats were not in control. Even though today we look at that and see that as Truman was doing the right thing. But in their time, they didn't think Truman was doing a good job. The Republican Party saw an opportunity. And that party, that if we nominate somebody who's strong in foreign policy, and who better than the person who walked us through D-Day, then they could steal an issue from the Democrats. And they haven't let it go since. The Republicans still today are seen as more that foreign policy party, where the Democrats are seen as more in domestic issues. All right, so I want to show you the difference between Eisenhower's policy and Truman's policy of containment versus Eisenhower. So I needed my two daughters to come up here, and we're going to play a little Jenga. Jenga. All right. And Tommy is my cameraman.
Hey.
So Annabelle here is playing Russia, Soviet Union, and Katie, you're going to be Truman and the United States. So Annabelle, move the first piece, please. This is the Soviet Union. They are going to try to steal West Berlin. Right? If you remember, they tried to steal West Berlin, put up a blockade of tanks. What does the United States do under Truman?
They do the Berlin airlift.
Bang! Berlin airlift. So go ahead.
I'm gonna knock it down.
Don't knock it down. You'll ruin my whole thing here I'm trying to do.
I don't want to move that one.
Well, you already touched it.
Just shut up, move it. I'll just move it anyway. Okay.
There you go. All right. Now, next up, Soviet Union. You're going to give money to Mao as they try to spread communism in China.
Okay.
So here comes giving money to Mao.
Risky.
There we go. All right. Now, what do you do in response, Truman? They're giving money to Mao. You're going to give money to
The other guy.
Chang.
Chang.
Very good, Tommy.
Good job.
All right.
You were laughing. You probably didn't know the answer.
I did.
No.
'Cause
Did you know it was the Chang?
I filmed all
You were
this.
laughing at me.
All right. And then our last one, Annabelle. You are setting it up with you're going to try to help North Korea attack South Korea. Right? So what are you going to do?
I do that.
Knock down the entire thing.
All right, and then Truman, your response. Who are you going to get to help fight in South Korea before you fire him?
MacArthur.
MacArthur, very good. So this is containment. This is the Truman Doctrine. The Russians do something, we're fighting back in return. Take a step back here. Go to the captain. All right, so go ahead. Thank you, ladies. Have a seat. So that is containment. Now it's Eisenhower's turn. Eisenhower, ready to be president? Eisenhower's going to change the Truman Doctrine to his new idea. You ready for his game? You want to play? Let's play! It's called massive retaliation. If you do anything, we bomb Moscow. So if North Korea tries to attack South Korea, are we going to send troops into South Korea? What do?
Bomb.
We bomb Moscow. You try to take West Berlin?
Bomb.
We bomb Moscow. You try to make China fall to communism? Do we send troops into China?
Nah.
Do we bomb China?
Nah.
No, we bomb Moscow. It is exactly what it sounds like. It is massive retaliation. If you try to do anything, we bomb Moscow. We're not messing around. I'm not playing a cute little game anymore. Now, Eisenhower, what is he known for? World War II?
World War II general.
Yeah, for what's the major battle?
D-Day.
So do you think that he would do it? Do you think he would drop the bomb?
Sure.
Sure, right? This is the guy who did D-Day. Absolutely he would. And that's the thing. He's got to mess with him. So that's his idea, and he calls it a bigger bang for the buck. Kind of a little attack on Truman, and Truman saying, "If the buck stops here,
Go Bucks.
we're gonna bigger bang for the buck. We're not gonna waste our money sending troops. We're gonna just build up our nukes, and we're gonna bomb Moscow." So every answer is bombing Moscow. Massive retaliation. There's a new leader in town. Stalin is dead. Oh no, I didn't even know he was sick. Oh. Stalin is dead. The new leader is Khrushchev. And Khrushchev doesn't have the resume that Stalin did. Stalin has killed 20 million people over his 30-year reign. So we know that Stalin's a tough guy. But Khrushchev has to build his reputation. And he goes out to a UN speech and takes his shoe off and bangs it on the desk and says, "We will bury you," to the United States. "We will bury you." And he claims that there are missiles coming out like sausages in a factory. I know, I always picture, like, I don't know if you know the I Love Lucy episode with the chocolates.
What?
If not, Google it and watch it on YouTube later. But, like, he's saying there are so many missiles coming out. I don't know why he uses sausages as an analogy. It's weird. But they're just pouring out like sausages in a factory.
There's a shoe.
There's a shoe banging right there on the desk. So my question to you,
Did
you're
you
the
hear
United States, what do you do? What did Khrushchev just said? He's got missiles coming out like sausages in a factory. What do you need to do?
Build up our stuff.
Number one, yes, you got to build up. Absolutely. What else do you need to do?
Bomb Moscow.
No! We need to find out.
Find out how they're
Are
doing.
they telling the truth?
Oh.
Right? You got to find out. Right? So what are we
I'm
going to do?
sorry, my
We
bad.
got to find out to see. So Eisenhower proposes open skies to the Soviet Union. We're going to fly. Here's the offer. We fly over your sites. You can fly over any sites that we have. Trying to calm down this new guy, Khrushchev. Who is this guy?
Mm-hmm.
What does Khrushchev say? Yes or no?
No.
Niet. He's Russian. He doesn't say it. Niet.
I don't know how to speak Russian.
No, he says no. Why would he say no?
Because that's weird.
It's weird. You don't trust him, and also
Yeah.
he's lying.
He's a communist.
He is a communist, but he is not building. He doesn't have that many. He's bluffing.
What a liar.
But here we go. What happens next?
Sputnik.
2 words. Sputnik. Toy Story 2 reference.
So good.
Sputnik goes into space. This is a satellite that Russia sends up into space, and we don't understand what a satellite is. The average American at that time, it beeps, and you can hear that beep through a radio down on Earth. So it's orbiting around the Earth, and it's sending a beep, beep, and you can hear it.
That's
down here.
suspicious.
Now today, of course, with our weather satellites and our GPS and all that, like how does Waze know how to get us from point A to point B? It's all through satellites. We understand that then, or now, but back then they didn't understand what a satellite was. All they knew was like, what do you mean they can send a satellite into space and it's going around the Earth? Are they spying on us? Is it a weapon? Are they going to fire at us? What's going on? And then in the next breath, guess what happened? We try to send up one about the size of a tennis ball. Sputnik's about the size of a basketball. We send one up about the size of a tennis ball, and it blows up on the launch pad.
That's awkward.
Right. We are losing this space race. So Eisenhower needs to get moving. So some of the things that he does, he's going to create NASA, right? He's going to create NASA, so we're going to have our own space program. So Eisenhower's the one who started that. We're going to put math and science focus in our schools. Ew. Why not?
That's disgusting.
He's going to replace the 3 R's as your focus to math and science. The 3 R's of reading, writing, arithmetic.
They can't spell.
Correct. They should have put spelling in there. 2 of the 3 R's don't actually begin with an R.
I'm sorry.
Arithmetic. But math and science focus. Science fairs come out for the first time. Your even toys like your rockets. Again, I referenced Toy Story 2. Like we moved away from the westerns and started focusing on like this Buck Rogers and different kinds of space expeditions like Buzz Lightyear. And this one may seem strange. The Federal Highway Act. The Federal Highway Act. That's just building roads. And it does transform the economy.
Suburbs.
Booming economy, the suburbs in the 1950s, yes. But as you're driving along this country, once the quarantine's over and you're actually allowed to again, when you're driving around the country, for every 10 miles of land, every 10 miles of road, you'll have 1 mile of straight road. That was built under Eisenhower in the Federal Highway Act. So when you're driving across the country, look for that. That for winding roads, there'll be every 10 miles there has to be a mile of straight road. Why do you think they put that in?
Planes.
Bang! Airplanes. So that in the event of a war, if Russia attacks the United States, we can put Americans on planes and fly them out of here, and they can land safely somewhere in like Wyoming or North Dakota. Get them out of New York City, get them out of Philadelphia, out of DC. At that point, it would take. You could still only attack through airplanes with dropping bombs. So we would have about 10 hours to notify and get people out. So if Russia's attacking us, they're putting a bomb on a plane, we got 10 hours to get as many people out as possible. And that's what the concept was. That was the idea. So even the Federal Highway Act has something to do with the massive retaliation. Even the suburbs, as you mentioned. The suburbs is trying to make sure that we don't fall to communism, that the average American citizen is living, quote, the American dream, that we're going to be busy living our little houses, painting, weeding, mulching,
What we did today.
cutting the grass, what we did today, painting the rooms, fixing the appliances, that you're going to be so busy running also your Cub Scout meeting and your Little League games that you're not going to have time to fall to communism. So the suburbs are even kind of tied into this fighting anti-communism. But it's ironic because in order to make sure we don't fall to communism where everybody has this same equal life, we're all going to live in this house that's all the same equal life. So it's kind of weird in that way. All right, so lastly, of course, we're going to spy. Right? When they said no, we're still going to fly over to find out if they have missiles like sausages. And on the by the way, backing up, these planes are called U-2 planes. And guess where we tested those planes? In a place called New Mexico in Area 51 in the 1950s. When people started testing these planes, and some crazy people said, dude, that's a UFO. I don't know what that is. Aliens.
It's a plane.
What did the government say?
Yeah.
Aliens.
Yep. I guess they are, because that was a good cover for the testing of these U-2 planes. So people
Oh.
would see the planes. There were undercover planes that the American public weren't supposed to know about. So when people thought they saw them and they said they must be UFOs, the government said, "Yep, I guess they may be UFOs. I don't know what they are."
I think that's
And that's where that whole storyline came from.
Didn't one get
Anyway.
shot down?
So why don't you just ruin it?
Oh,
On
I'm
the
sorry.
very last trip of Eisenhower's presidency, a U-2 plane gets shot down over Moscow. Now, the U-2 plane is supposed to blow up upon getting hit. If they don't blow up, the pilot has a self-destruct button. If the pilot is going to get captured, he has a cyanide pill that he's supposed to take to kill himself, so that all this information does not get in the hands of the Russians. On the very last mission, Francis Gary Powers' plane gets shot down by the Russians. Eisenhower tells the American people it was a weather plane that blew off course, because he knows that there's no evidence. And then Khrushchev said, "Oh yeah? Then who's this?" And brings out
idiot.
Francis Gary Powers. Francis Gary Powers had crashed. He was knocked unconscious before he could take any kind of pill. He is captured. He didn't blow up the plane because he was knocked unconscious. So at the very last story of Eisenhower's presidency, shown in the movie Bridge of Spies with Tom Hanks, little plug there, little Netflix that one. We are going to trade. We have a Russian spy that we trade with Khrushchev, and we get those in return. So we get Powers back, and we give them a Russian spy. So that goes to our question. Last piece here. What is the better approach? Massive retaliation or Truman Doctrine? The Truman Doctrine, the why Eisenhower says this is much better. How many deaths in the Truman Doctrine? How many people died in the Korean War?
A lot.
Yeah, about 50,000 people. 50,000 Americans are killed. How many deaths with the massive retaliation?
None.
0. Right? No more games. So Eisenhower argues massive retaliation was a much better approach than the Truman Doctrine because you have no one dying. Russia has not tried during his 8 years. Right? There's no story of them trying to take Berlin or them trying to take China again or South Korea or somewhere else. Like, no, there's no attempt because they know that Eisenhower is crazy enough to use a weapon. Eisenhower calls it the MAD theory, mutually assured destruction. That since we're not going to attack them because then we'll be killed, they won't attack us because they will be killed. So if we both know that we're going to use our nukes and then the world will be over, no one will use their nukes. So we're on the brink of war. The argument why Truman is better. What if this didn't work? What if Khrushchev decided, Eisenhower's bluffing, and he tries to take South Korea again? Then what? Uh-oh. Right? So you certainly could argue that Truman Doctrine is a better idea because we have options. We didn't always go in. We didn't go in China, right? We went in with South Korea, but we didn't fight in China. We used an airlift in Berlin. We didn't have to. It wasn't all or nothing. So those that argue Truman Doctrine's better are saying it gave the president more options. But Eisenhower's going to argue, no. If you show them that you're nuts, and that you would do it. And again, Eisenhower has the resume with D-Day that he's going to do it if he needs to. That taught or showed the Russians not to try anything. All right. So thank you for today's lesson. I got to clean up some Jenga pieces.